Joseph, delighted to be chatting to you again. How the devil are you, sir?
Terry. Oh my God, look at you there. We just happened upon each other in Zoom. Good to see you again.
Yeah. How's life in New Hampshire? Hot? Warm?
Life is hot today. Life is warm today. It's about 80, 85 degrees, but there's a beautiful breeze. And my beloved princess tells me that later on I can go fly my kites.
That was a poem that you just said. A breeze, degrees, flying your kite. Poetry, instant poetry like that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a happening kind of guy.
Have you ever thought of taking on writing for a living, Joseph?
People have said that to me. Let me get my face right in the camera. People have said that to me a few times. I keep on wondering if it's, something I should do.
Well, to be serious, you provide, looking on your website, you provide a great many services to would-be writers and to help people improve their writing. You helped me join and set up a writers critique group here in the UK with Rika, which I've spent about 6 months involvement with. It's great to set a deadline for your writing. So talk to me about that. What services do you provide?
Well, there's a difference between what I provide for free, because I like people and I like to help people, and what I charge for. Some of the groups I've been in, they have said that my writing is way beyond what they're able to do, which is very flattering. And I work very hard to bring them up, just get them above where they are. Because a lot of times, without meaning to, writers will hit a plateau and they'll become very comfortable. Being comfortable is good. Being comfortable and stretching is, to me, even better. So sometimes when I'm just talking with writers, we have different meetings. I will hear what they've written and I will make some suggestions and I will help them that way. I will offer people, let me see what you've written. Give me the first page of what you've written. And usually you can tell by the first page what their major challenges are to their writing. So I do offer critiquing. By the way, the website is www.josephcarrabis.com. Join, be a member, yeehaw. And if you subscribe, you get half price on everything. Hey, I'm telling you, because I am expensive. I recognize that my prices are high. And to be honest with you, that's because I don't want to be bothered by people who aren't serious. People who are serious come to me very often. People who are not serious say things like, well, this is so easy for you. Just give me 15 minutes for free. The reason it's so easy for me is because I spent years working at it. So, let me know if you need brain surgery. Let me know if you go to the doctor and say, just make a small cut for free. We'll see how it works out. So I do that. There's a lot of stuff on my blog, which is, for example, one of the most recent posts is about attribution through action. And that is specifically, a lot of writers, a lot of authors will have said. John said to Mary. John said. Or John exclaimed, or something of that nature, which is fine. That's excellent. However, attribution through action goes one step further, a couple of steps further, in that it creates tension, or it can create tension. It offers plot points. It drives the plot forward. So for example, instead of John said, John picked up his glass and looked at Mary pointedly. Well, now you know there's tension there. I haven't said John said to Mary, but I've told you John, Mary, John picked up his glass and looked at Mary pointedly. So there's tension, and that moves the story forward. That makes the reader go, what, why did John not like, what's the point? What's going on here? So there's stuff like that.
What I picked up from that, that's the type of thing you'd read in a well-written screenplay as well. You created action and drama. At the same time. There's a great crossover between the two genres of writing.
I I study, and I encourage people to study all forms of writing. I study poetry, I study screenwriting, I study plays, theater work. I study photography and I study choreography.
Yeah.
Because I took a class with a world-class photographer who she takes photographs for galleries and publishes them in major magazines. And what I learned from her was how to frame a scene.
Yeah.
What is required in the scene for the reader to get what's going on? Don't tell them about everything else. You don't need to know what the color of the trees are here and what's over there and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You probably get enough from me in this scene to know, or to let your reader, your listeners and your viewers know what's important about me. Great. That's all you need. So from photography lessons, I learned how to frame, how to draw people's attention to the center of the frame, to the character that I want them to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And to put in things in that frame that'll be necessary later.
Okay.
If I may give you an example.
Yeah.
In the Sidney Poitier Rod Steiger, In the Heat of the Night.
Oh yeah, yeah.
One of Rod Steiger's props as Gillespie, as the sheriff, is gum. He chews gum constantly.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, yeah.
Pay attention to when Gillespie stops chewing. Pay attention to when Gillespie takes the gum out of his mouth and throws it on the ground. Pay attention to when he turns from whoever he's talking to, turns and spits it out. And he used that prop so beautifully to emphasize that character's emotions at that point and how he felt about who he was talking to.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's Rod Steiger. I mean, the guy was just, we don't act like that today.
I watched that a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't pick up on that. But now you mention it, it is a major part of his character. Is chewing gum. I sort of took for granted after seeing him doing it a couple of times, and I sort of missed those signals, if you like. Yeah. In a way, this is about foreshadowing, isn't it? Sort of putting a seed in place that's going to grow later on in the plot.
Exactly, and that's why I study all forms, of communication, because characters in a story are not just on the page. They have to be alive in the reader's mind. Yeah. Yeah. Or in a movie, they have to jump out of the screen and get the reader engaged and involved.
Yeah, yeah. Just to carry on from that, as well as your vast catalogue, you've got 3 whole pages on Amazon, which I'll come back to. Can we talk about this thing that's behind me? Outside of writing fiction, outside of writing poetry and prose and short stories, Reading Virtual Minds, Volume 1, Science and History. So tell me about this. You've got an academic background, a business background?
Please, no, let's not. But excuse me. Many millions of years ago, back in the early 1990s, I'll try to give you a capsule version.
Okay.
Back in the 1990s, there was this thing that was just coming alive, coming around, called the internet. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, and websites were basically page brochures. They weren't anything fantastic. I was teaching at a small college here in New England. And I realized the students were having difficulties with the material because it was advanced psychology. So I said, with what I know about psychology and what I know about neuroscience and blah and blah and blah, I'll bet I can use computers to communicate to people in a way they're unaware of, but which drives information deep into their minds. Yeah. So it took me 3 months to create the prototype, which I did in my basement, literally. We called it Evolution Technology because it was the next, and that was the company was Next Stage Evolution. Yeah. And the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, USPTO, Patent and Trade Office. This is their wording,
Yeah.
not my wording. When we patented the first patent, they wrote and said, next stage evolution has created a technology which can understand and respond to human thought through any human-machine interface.
Yeah.
And that's what the book is about. It's about how we created that company, how I created the technology, what the technology is derived from.
Yeah.
And it grew to an international company. And then Susan and I said, this sucks.
Yeah.
We are so tired of this bull crap. That's a
Okay.
technical term. I don't want to offend your listeners and your viewers.
No.
But we really had it after 20, 25 years. So done, over and done with. And now we're happy here in our
Okay.
room.
Do you still own the patents? Is that still?
I still own the patents, yeah, but you know, I remember demonstrating the technology at MIT and at Stanford, and they were going, how did you make this work? Well, it's right there. It's in the patent. That's what the patent tells you how to do it. So you can replicate it if you need to.
Yeah.
No, this should not work. Oh, my bad. I'm terribly sorry. I screwed up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but because when I created the original patentable version, and this was back in the mid 1990s, you got to remember, I had it working on a laptop. The entire thing worked on a laptop.
Yeah.
So this is a 286 core technology. For those of you who may remember, what was the 286? And it was incredibly fast. I actually had some folks from a major search engine company, which you may know of. They figured we did a demonstration for them online, and they figured that it was going to take hours for this thing to do processing.
Yeah. So
the guy started it. He literally stood up to get a cup of coffee, and the system reported, "Here's your results." So it was very fast, very quick, very efficient.
Okay. But that's moving on from there, going back to what people probably know you for mainly is for fiction work. I mentioned you've got 3 whole pages on Amazon. I don't think I know anyone else who's got that much exposure, if you like.
Oh,
What's your latest writing? Is it Harvey Duck short stories or what novel?
well, the last thing I had published is actually in Bewildering Stories. They're serializing Monaghay, which is Monaghay was originally published in the mid 1990s. Yeah. And you can find that both on my Amazon page as a separate ebook and as in my anthology, Tales Told Round Celestial Campfires. Yeah. But Monaghay is the story of a young man, married, happy, who's in the world of high finance in Boston, Massachusetts, and is growing increasingly dissatisfied with that world he is in. Yeah. And begins remembering things his grandfather, one of his grandfathers was Native American. Yeah. And he remembers things his Native American grandfather told him. So as he's becoming more disillusioned, the young man becoming more disillusioned with the world he's in, all the spirit entities that his grandfather told him about come to him and say his name, Monaghay. Yeah. Come on, you need to learn this stuff. And it's about his spiritual development and growth. Yeah. So that's being serialized in Bewildering Stories. Please read it and comment. Okay. And Harvey Duckman, that was kind of a fluke. A friend of mine said, "Hey, Joseph, Harvey Duckman accepted one of my stories. Send them something because they'll accept anything." And, wow.
Nice compliment.
Yeah. There's expectations and control. So I I sent them Morning Song, which is based on a Huron legend, Native American indigenous people. That's from my anthropology background. So I sent them Morning Song, and this story had been rejected by just about everybody. So okay, fine. I was waiting for the rejection, and I get a letter, an email. An email is from one of the editors. And the editor is saying in the email, I couldn't get over this story. I stopped being an editor so I could just read the story.
Wow.
Do you have anything else? Please send us something else. We'll publish this. We want more. Yeah. And then I was talking with them, and I found out that they had literally passed the story around the office. Yeah. You got to read this story. You got to read this story. And I'm thinking to myself, where have you people been for 25 years? But people get published. If you're a writer, you will get published if you are persistent. You have to have your goal. You have to have it in your mind. Yeah. And of course, in my opinion, you have to work at your craft. Yeah. Keep on getting better. Yeah. So that's Harvey Duckman. Okay. And I've been published, and I forget how many of them. The last one I think is Harvey Duckman 9 or 10, and I have a story in that. And whatever one comes next, there's a story in that. So
there's I'm looking at the Amazon page now on another screen, and it goes off the screen basically. There's that many.
I'm a lucky guy. Works hard.
I just made a couple of notes there as we were talking, just going back a bit. You mentioned the indigenous people in America. Last time we had a chat, you told me a brilliant short tale about what the Northern Lights, what they actually mean in sort of a kind of folklore way. Can you remind me of that? Tell me about that again.
This is Anuak myth. Yeah. Myth being different from legend. Anyway, if you've had the opportunity, or I guess some people would call it misfortune, to be in the high Arctic, the Northern Lights, they literally come down to the horizon and dance. And if you're willing, you will see figures dancing on the ground as they come down, because it's not like whoosh, it's and the myth is these are the spirits of the unborn children waiting to find their place. Yeah. And I mean, even just sharing that, the hair goes up on the back of my neck, because myth from all over the world it's this powerful, most powerful stories. And that's where I would suggest authors and writers study those to learn the great tales that created us. Yeah. Japanese myth is different from French myth, from German myth, Brazilian myth. If you ever read Brazilian folktales, my God, whoa, those are three cultures colliding and bringing us rich stories. Yeah. African folktales. I'm currently reading a book of African folktales from all over the continent. And it's amazing, because one thing it gives us is information or insight into a different way of thinking. Yeah. People used to, for example, Grimm's fairy tales or Hans Christian Andersen. Yeah. The African folktales will be very confusing. At least they were confusing to me, because they don't follow the same structure and they don't have the same outcome. Okay. It's a very different way of storytelling and of creating myth.
Yeah, the traditional way, the way I understand the Hans and the Grimm's tales, is that it's sort of preparing children for adulthood. There's danger out there, beware. But don't worry, at the end of the story, your mum and dad's there to protect you. Good will overcome, which is not always the case, as we know in real life. But it's comforting to a child.
Well, if you read the original Grimm's tales,
much darker.
They were, for lack of a better term, they were Disney-fied. Disney. They were Disney-fied in the modern tellings, because children,
Yeah.
You're correct that the original forms were cautionary tales.
Yeah.
Don't go alone into the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, forget about the metaphors and the allusions to rape, to violence, to just horrible acts, children being stolen. Hansel and Gretel is about children being stolen and consumed,
Yeah.
not eaten, because children understand eaten.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do not understand being taken away and sold.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things. Japanese myth is very interesting because usually there's a deity involved, and the deity makes a very minimal appearance at the beginning of the story. The humans do their stuff, and then the deity makes an appearance at the end of the story to either punish or redeem the humans who have screwed up horribly.
Okay.
So that's different, because what it kind of indicates is whatever you do, good or bad, there's going to be another force, for lack of a better term, a higher power, who's going to have to be involved. You read all these myths from across the world and match them to the cultures they come from. That concept would have to be a Japanese myth.
Okay.
Look at Chinese mythology. Read the Tales of the Monkey King. Oh,
yeah, I remember the television series back in the 70s. Brilliant.
Right. Well, that was a television series. Don't pay attention to the Netflix version, which I find amusing, to be honest with you. But Tales of the Monkey King, the original tales, whoa, that's, so different than Western mythological folklore, folk tales.
Yeah.
I can tell that I must be boring you to tears, because
Not at all. No, I'm really interested. I'm going to look up after this what the Japanese folklore and myths. The way that came across to me, I'm thinking, when I think of a Japanese society, there's a conformity, a acquiescence to authority. Moving on to one of the novels that I've read of yours, or the latest one. Last time we spoke about The Augmented Man. Brilliant book, available on your Amazon page, highly recommended. You were moving to a new publisher, or you'd already moved. How's that moving on with the Sixth Element Publishing? How's that relationship?
I've decided that I won't be publishing anything more through Sixth Element.
Okay.
For various reasons. Mainly, I would have to say business and professional reasons.
Okay.
And like everything, for some writers, they're a reasonable publisher.
Yeah.
For me, they are not a reasonable publisher.
Okay.
And that's probably the best thing to say publicly.
Is the book still available?
I hope so.
Yep. Tell us the plot of The Augmented Man without any spoilers. Just tell me what happens, what it's about.
The Augmented Man. The United States is involved in a unwinnable war in South America. And the majority of soldiers who are returning basically strung out on drugs from the cocaine fields, et cetera, et cetera. And the United States says, we have to end this. How can we end this? The other problem that they're experiencing is 99% of the people coming back have massive post-traumatic stress disorder, just horrible. So Major Donaldson, Captain Donaldson, at the time the story begins, he says, I have an idea. This is what we can do. If the problem is the people are coming back with massive PTSD and drug addiction, let's find people that already have massive PTSD and have somehow or other not lost the ability to become addicted to drugs. One reason they can lose the ability to become addicted to drugs is the brain is firing so many norepinephrines into itself that there's no place for them to attach. There's no selective attachment for a drug. So, okay, gee, that's a great idea. Where are we going to find these types of people? We're going to look at horribly traumatized children, just children who have been sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually beaten to crap. Because anything they're going to experience in combat's already been done to them.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. How are we going to do that? We have the technology to modify their bodies, so their bodies become what they already think they are, monsters.
Yeah.
So they go through a selection process, they find 9, they send 9, and in a course of 120 days, these 9 individuals bring the war to a halt.
Yeah.
But then the United States says, we can't bring these back. We can't have them walking around in society.
Yeah.
You know, they're each of them is over 7 feet tall. They're 500 pounds, and they look like tanks. They're, you know, huge, grotesquely musculature creatures. So the United States says, well, tell you what, we've signed the truce. Part of the truce will be we're going to hand them over with the normalizing drugs, the drugs that take away their strength and ability.
Yeah.
So they sacrifice the creatures, the men that won the war for them.
Yeah.
And don't realize that the enemy, fascinated by these human tanks, kept one alive to experiment on.
Yeah.
For 10 years. He escapes, comes back to the States. And that's what I've just shared with you is basically the first third of the book. At which point the government says to now Major Donaldson, we found one's got to be one of yours.
Yeah.
He just went into a bar and killed everybody. And then he sat there waiting for us to come get him.
Yeah.
It's your job. You either kill him or normalize him, make him society stable.
Yeah.
And that's the rest of the book. And I wrote the book because at the time I was heavily involved in the PTSD community, and I was studying psychotherapy, psychology routines, and getting involved in neuroscience and neurobiology. And I had this theory. I looked at I looked at how PTSD manifests and what causes it, and childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Both are being treated separately.
Yeah.
And I said, no, these two are the same. These two, there are so many points in common. There are common aspects that we can take care of. At the time, the psychotherapeutic community didn't want to hear about it. No, that was not done, especially by a guy with no degree in the field.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, it is part of the standard literature. Thank you.
Yeah.
And in the middle section of the Augmented Man, I basically detail how to take someone who's severely traumatized and bring them back to make them functional in a society. Yeah. And I've had people from all over the globe contact me and say, you've written the textbook, you've written the book on how to do it. Good. I've had people walk up to me at signings and tell me that reading that book helped them understand how to deal with their father, their brother, their sister, their son. Good.
Childhood traumas.
Yeah, childhood and PTSD, combat, they're the same thing.
Yeah. You've teamed up with the international actress Sabine Rossbach. She reads. How did you pronounce that?
Sabine.
Sabine. I said Sabine, didn't I? Sabine. That sounds more French. Sabine Rossbach. Rossbach.
Yes.
She reads out excerpts of the novel. Quite brilliantly. She's an actress, so she would do it brilliantly.
Oh, yeah. She happened upon one of my short stories. Yeah. Cimadoce, which also you can find on Amazon, singly or in tales. And she's a very active swimmer. I forget how many miles a day she swims. And the story involves the ocean.
Yeah.
So she was, she read this and she was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And she got in touch with me and we were talking back and forth, and I was so flattered, she's an international actress.
Yeah.
So I was so thrilled. Excuse me. And I was on the verge of saying to her, Sabine, I know I can't afford you, but would you be willing to read something of mine so I can use it in promotions?
Yeah.
And I didn't. And I could just, it's like, oh God, I gotta ask her. No, don't be a fool, Joseph. About 5 hours later,
Yeah.
she emails me.
Yeah.
She says, do you have time to chat? Yeah, sure. What? She goes, I was baking. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, she had her head in the oven. What do I know? She was baking and she says, all of a sudden,
I just thought when you said that.
all of a sudden, I said to myself, I have to read Joseph's work. So there it was. She had the same idea I had. Probably the 5 hours time difference was because of the East Coast US versus Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
Took a while for that idea to get across the Atlantic. But I said, if you are willing to do this, I can't afford you.
Yeah.
She said, don't worry about it. That's okay. And this is part of my philosophy of pay things forward. Anybody who follows me on Twitter,
it's your...
I always say thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Please pay it forward. Do a good to the next person in line.
Yeah.
She did me this kindness. I do what I can for others.
The Augmented Man, Episode 2. In 13 March 2042, Orinoco extraction. 10 years, 2 months, 13 days since Manacapuro truce ended conflict. Massively scarred.
Donaldson shivered as he keyed his mobile for secured voice-only transmission. "Did you hear me, Major?" the voice asked. "Brazil's found somebody's got to be one of your men." Trailer emerged from the jungle massively scarred. He'd been strapped on his knees, his arms pulled back, barred, and his wrists strapped to his ankles. Even Trailer couldn't remember how long. He had neither fingertips nor fingernails, because they had burnt the tops of all the nails on both hands. Blisters formed underneath the nails, causing incredible pressure on the tips of the fingers and the inability to move the fingers or hold things. Period. Trailer needed to hold things to escape. So he bit through his own fingertips to let the fluid out. Donaldson hung up, ordered a car, and in less than an hour was flying to Dream Space, deep in the Hopi Indian Reservation, on Black Mesa in the northeast corner of Arizona. As the last stateside location Trailer had seen, Donaldson figured it would serve as his gateway back. Trailer lay on a bed in the hospital compound under guard when Donaldson arrived at Dream Space. He rose when Donaldson walked in the room, and 4 guards trained their rifles on him. Donaldson motioned them to stand down. Trailer left the hospital after he'd been there a month. On a deep, high mesa night, with a cloudless, moonless sky and mountains on all horizons. They woke Donaldson as lights came on all over the compound and Dream Space's perimeter defenses went active. Donaldson considered. Some would call it an escape. But Donaldson wrote it up as simple dismissal. Trailer didn't officially exist. Therefore, the misinformation could be easily buried.
Yeah, going back to your website, Joseph, You do interviews with other writers. You do reviews of other writers.
Yes.
How much of your time is spent with that?
Well, when I first started out, I interviewed a lot of writers, basically to learn from them.
Yeah.
What was the writing game like? How did you fare? I learned a tremendous amount from all different genres. I had technical people, a fellow who's in Germany, I believe it was. He's a very well-known and respected financial advisor. And he wrote a book on financial work. How do you save for your future?
Yeah.
There was a cozy mystery writer. There was a comedy mystery writer. Detective novels, police procedurals, romance authors, self-help authors. And again, my feeling is you can learn from everybody. If you're willing to, you can learn from everybody. So I would ask them a bunch of questions. Sometimes they would be like from a list of questions I would give them ahead of time.
Yeah.
A lot of times I would go through the list and go, okay, I'm going to go off the list. Is that okay? Sure.
Yeah.
And we would get into marketing. We would get into advertising. We would get into what publishers have you learned to stay away from? What publishers do you think are good? One woman, she had 7 books with a major publisher, and had a few more ready to go. She told me that major publisher, the editor who had seen her through 7 books, retired. They assigned a new editor to her who didn't think cozy mysteries were worth reading. So did absolutely no work on her 8th, 9th, and 10th books.
Ooh.
She said, screw it, and decided to self-publish and had the audience established. Good for her. So you learn a lot from everybody. And that's what my goal was, to learn from everybody. I keep on thinking I may want to do that again. But what I would probably do at this point is do authors roundtables. I would invite 3 or 4 or 5 authors. Let's all get together for an hour on Zoom and talk shop. Because that to me is much more interesting, even as interesting as I may be. Talking with a bunch of people and getting a bunch of different opinions is much more intriguing. Plus, you can see the dynamics, the interactions between the people. That's how you get it done. Part of the challenge there, of course, is getting that huge presence on social media.
It's a vicious circle, isn't it? Some publishers say you need that. How many followers do you have before they even look at your work? Which is a bit, the cart before the horse, really.
Well, if you're purely interested in this sale, probably it's a good thing, because you know that person has an audience already of 20,000 people. But if you are a long-term author with a bunch of books ready to go, you want to grow an audience. The reviews of books, when people send me something to read of theirs, I'm a very tough critiquer. But the other side of that is, when I find an author who is over the top, my God, brilliant, such as your darling self, sir, then just let the world know. This is an amazing book. This author, hot damn, get this author, make him a must read, he or she a must read. And Tales from the Green Hills, in case anybody's ever heard of it, is an amazing book. Look, I'm looking right in the camera. See that? It's an amazing book.
Thanks,
you
Joseph.
must read it.
Thanks.
And I understand there's a sequel coming soon, which he won't let me see.
It's coming soon.
He won't let me have it because I'm not loved.
Joseph, do you know what I'm struggling with it? Because I think we've had chats previously. I've said to you that a lot of parts of that book is true, actual events. What I'm struggling with is the sequel is pure fiction. None of it's happened, and I'm sort of making this up. But I've got no, muscle memory to base it on, if you like. I can't. I don't feel as though I'm being that sort of honest. If that makes sense in the writing, I don't feel as though it's that authentic to match the original.
Well, I can appreciate that. I can understand it. And what I'll offer is, instead of being concerned about the events, making the offense authentic. These things really happened. Now I'm going to write something fictional based on what really happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that even if these are fictional events,
Yeah.
the emotional energy of the characters in those events is real to you, or can be real to you. For example, somebody loses a child. I'm not saying that's happened to you, but you can appreciate you've lost something in your life.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to write that emotional energy for these characters. Somebody gets a job. Wow. Well, especially if you're a young person, right, from a disadvantaged background, and you get a good job, good pay.
Yeah.
Well, 9 times out of 10, the first thing that happens is you think you've hit the lottery every paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. And you piss it away. And there's this one guy who says, no, I saved all my money so I could get a pickup truck and work my own farm. And, lets everybody know my background.
Yeah.
Okay. I never had that exact experience, but I've known what it's like to have to save every penny.
Yeah.
When I was in college, true story. One of the times I was in college, I got a summer job at the college, but I also had to pay my own rent. And I don't know if you folks over in Great Britain have Velveeta cheese.
No.
It's basically a 5-pound block of not really cheese.
Yeah.
It might have at one point looked at a cow, but no, it's purely synthetic.
Yeah.
And one summer I had crackers, a 5-pound block of Velveeta, and coffee. That was what I ate all summer. Not all in one sitting, because I had to make that last. Because I had to get ready to pay for books, pay for tuition, and my rent. Plus put gas in my car to get to and from work. So I know what that is like. And I can create a character. Doesn't have to have my experience, but has a severe want experience.
True.
An experience of walking down the street, looking at a store window and going, oh shit, it'd be great if I could have that.
Yeah.
If I could just, whatever. So I appreciate that you may not have the memory of what happens to the characters, but I'll bet you have an emotional memory of a similar event. And that's what you can write about in your characters in the event.
That makes perfect sense, Joseph. I've got no arguments against that pure logic of it. I think that I've been using what I said to you as a shield, maybe as an excuse, but there's no, it falls down. You've just knocked it right down. So appreciate that.
My pleasure. And, everybody that I know of has a point where their work challenges them in some way, shape, or form. And to me, this is one of the powers of a good writing group, a good critique group, but just where a bunch of authors can get together and talk shop. Like I was saying earlier, having 5 or 6 authors together on Zoom, how do you deal with, you're writing an event, you're writing a storyline, your characters have never had those experiences. I mean, you have never had those experiences. What do you base it on? I'll give you an example. I just finished about two weeks ago, I think it was, work in progress, a novel, Tag, which takes place in medieval Eastern Europe, where I've never been.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm not a medieval scholar. However, I've been around farm animals a lot. I've worked on farms. Most of the people back then were farmers. I have a martial arts background, so I know what it's like to hold a sword, or hold a lance, or hold a bow. So when the castle guards do something, I've driven horse carts. Okay, and the church, the Roman Catholic Church, because it was predominant in the Byzantine Church, the Muslim empires from the east and south, and the old traditional woods knowledge, the wise woman, wise person knowledge. I've had experiences in those areas of those culture clashes. So I can look up what medieval Eastern Europe was like for details. And I did.
Yeah.
And I've never had the exact experiences those characters had, but I've had enough similar experiences. Pain is pain. Human pain is human pain.
Yeah.
Right? We read Greek tragedy and it still hurts because pain is pain.
Yeah.
We read the Norse sagas and we still feel what those characters felt when they have to deal with Sigurd and the Worm Slayer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm going on. I'm sorry.
No, I got the universal themes. You know, it's universal emotions.
Yeah, exactly. It's universal emotions.
Yeah.
That's what you have to deal with. You can watch, if any of your viewers have a chance to see anything by Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki's work.
Say that again, Joseph. The name.
Studio Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, it's on HBO. They have an entire section channel for Studio Ghibli. In the work of Miyazaki, he's a Japanese animator. He pulls tremendously from Japanese myth. Start off with My Friend Totoro. I'm going to cry right now. My Friend Totoro is such an amazingly beautiful story about spirits coming to help a child through a difficult time. Yes, I do let my emotions out freely.
Yeah.
And I everyone who's seen it, we make it a point. We have friends over. Let's watch this, and they all like, "Wow, this is amazing." And if you have a little bit of cultural knowledge, what happens in the story is just over the top. It's amazing, and just a little bit more knowledge over the top. So, My Friend Totoro.
Okay, I've written that down.
It's translated as My Neighbor Totoro.
Okay,
Wolf.
That's on my list.
Yes, or Spirited Away. Oh my God, Spirited Away. Howl's Moving Castle. Can you tell I enjoy his stuff?
Yeah. It's you're plugging it really well. It sounds compelling. Joe, so I know it's our time running low, but maybe as a final question, can you ask you what advice you give for a would-be writer, for a wannabe writer?
Be honest with yourself. You may have people telling you, "Oh, this is an amazing piece of writing. Oh, this is great."
Your friend or your brother.
Yeah,
people are not objective.
Yeah, and what you need to do, what I needed to do, telling you from my experience, I needed to look at something as if someone else wrote it. Totally forget that I wrote that. And it may be about something I've experienced in my life. All my stories are autobiographical. I don't try to hide the fact.
Yeah.
So I look at something that I've written as if I'm a totally different person. Does this catch me in the first sentence? Does this catch me in the first paragraph? Does this catch me in the first page? Am I willing to devote 10 pages of reading to this thing? 50 pages? 100 pages? If you look at your stuff honestly, and say, meh, good for you, then the next part is what needs to be better. And this is where being in a critique group or with a workshop can be helpful.
Yeah.
Because, and in my interview that I did for our own stuff, which is on my website, and it's entitled, it's autobiography, I swear. I talk about being able to know in a critique group, that's a valid comment. That's a comment from somebody who just doesn't like me. So anything I write is going to be horrible because they don't like me.
Yeah.
That's a good comment, but it's not about what they said. For example, I was just finishing, or I just went through the edits of a short story of mine, or long story of mine, 8,000 words. And 3 or 4 first readers came back with similar but not the same comments about the same section now.
Yeah.
So I looked at all their comments. I went, what is the thread here? And I realized that none of them were actually describing what the problem was.
Yeah.
They were describing an effect of the problem on the story. So in other words, the problem was 2 characters had 2 similar voices. Literally, their language was too
yeah.
similar.
Yeah, yeah.
And the readers couldn't differentiate because they would come back with, is it who's is Philippe talking here, or is this Louise talking here? So the fact that they were questioning who was talking is not about the story, because they loved the story, but it was about being able to differentiate the characters. So, okay. And this goes into attribution or attribution through action. All I had to do to make the readers happy was put in a couple of these, and then Louise said two, okay, or Louise picked up the phone. You sure you want me to make this call? Boom. Now you know who's talking.
Yeah.
Okay. So for beginning authors, writers, writer wannabes, be very honest with your work. Recognize that you can always improve. People are stunned that I still take classes, and I'm actively seeking teachers to help me improve my craft. Yes, because I don't think I know it all, and I never think I will. There's so much more to learn. So give yourself time, be honest with your craft, and develop your craft. Read everything, even if it's crap, read it. But when you read and you recognize this sucks, goes back to working at your own stuff and going, how come I stopped reading this? Why did you stop reading it? It's crap. Okay, yeah, I got that. But why? Why is it crap? Then practice uncrapping it, so to speak.
I like the term, the vomit draft. A lot of people say this. Get the vomit draft out the way.
Yes,
and then
that's good.
Then you start writing.
I like that. I'm going to have to use that somewhere.
It was a lady you've spoken to before, Jennifer Irwin. I know you've done an interview with Jennifer. I chatted to her a couple of weeks ago. And it was her that sort of told me about that phrase. I thought I liked it. I'll pinch that. I'll use that.
Good. Yes.
Joseph, times have caught up with us, but it's been absolutely brilliant chatting with you again. And I really appreciate your valuable time.
My pleasure. I appreciate your time.
What I'll do as well, I'll put links to your website and to your Amazon page. Any other links that you want me to add?
My social medias, my Facebook page, my Twitter. Can always use more people following me on Twitter.
Of course,
If people want to reach out and know a bit more about my scientific and academic background, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm out there. I am so out there. Let me tell you.